Hey everybody, I'm really excited to show this video to you. This video was actually done in a private client setting, and I was covering the nature of how to make better decisions to improve your mental health and improve your quality of life on the whole, because a lot of people have this problem with analysis paralysis and procrastinating and not following through on what they really want to do. So if you can relate to any of that, then this video is going to be very important for you to see, because I was diving into a more advanced training and topic just for our clients, but I really wanted our group to have this, so I think you'll really enjoy it. Please pay attention, pay close attention, take some notes, and let me know in the comments what you think. See ya.
So sometimes, as you guys know, I'll have like a little piece of content for you guys, like something that I want to share, that I think will help you. Sometimes I don't. Today there was something that was just kind of fresh with me. I was looking at some of the questions, and I put something together here that I want to share with you guys. So some of you, I'm going to talk about a concept that some of you guys have heard me talk about before, but I really want to challenge you to put yourself in a state like this is the very first time you're hearing this. Because as you guys know, with a lot of these principles that we teach, I'm a big believer that, mastery, right? You guys know that most of the programs are named like something mastery. The whole concept of mastery really comes down to doing the fundamental things until it becomes habitual. Right. So the example you've probably heard me give a bunch of times is like Michael Jordan, right? So the thing that made Michael Jordan was not that he was born with exceptional talent. It's not that he came from like a privileged background and had access to the best coach or anything like that. Quite literally, he just practiced like twice as much as the average basketball player. So he was relentless at making sure that he practiced the fundamentals. So for instance, like with free throws, he'd do thousands and thousands and thousands of free throws, the same repetitive little action, so that way, when it became that clutch little moment in the actual times that mattered, he didn't even have to think about what to do. It just became automatic muscle memory. So in the same aspect, you may not think there's much in common between you and Michael Jordan, but there is, right? When we're talking about mental health, and we're talking about the fundamentals of making sure that you are living a powerful, fulfilled life, it comes down to training the brain to do what you need it to do. And these exercises in the course and these group calls kind of become like your practice period. It becomes an opportunity for you to figure out, what are the weak points in my game right now? What are the spots that I need to practice? And then it's on you in your individual time or through the various coaching opportunities you have with us to design, okay, how am I going to get my mind to focus where I need it to focus, so that way I can execute the way I need to execute. And you guys all have different goals, whether you're trying to improve your relationships, improve your business, improve your health, whatever. Okay. But we all have fundamental skills that have to be mastered for us to live a really, really high quality of life and fulfillment long term. And I want to talk about one of those skills today, because I think it's one of the ones that is the least truly understood. It's one of those things that, like, when I start to explain it, you're going to go, oh yeah, yeah. But you really need to listen here, because very often people do not have the level of mastery. I'll even say myself, this is one of the skills that even I teach, and I'm like, damn, I need to be doing that more, right? So it's one of those things. Okay, and what it is it's the concept of decisions. We need to talk about decisions. Okay, so everyone, this is a very common word. Everyone's like, oh yeah, decisions, right? But let's talk about this for a second. So I'm a big believer, after my work doing hundreds and hundreds of these things with you guys, right? I've seen people with just about every type of traumatic background you could imagine. I've seen people from all sorts of different biographies, privileged, underprivileged, racial inequality, non-racial inequality, trauma, abuse, right? All sorts of things. And I've seen people who come from wealthy, privileged backgrounds who are completely suicidal and depressed. I've seen people who went through just about every imaginable struggle comprehensible, yet they live a very happy, fulfilled life. Seen people who are in their current present circumstances, like as they've been a client of mine, they're being actively taken advantage of in some systematic way. and they still are able to feel good in their regular daily life. And then I've seen other people who, by all accounts, would, we could look at their life circumstances and say, gosh, I'm surprised you don't feel happy, and they feel totally miserable. Okay. And one of the key reasons why some people have lesser mental health than others is we're making different decisions. Okay. So the phrase I want you to capture in your notes is this: decisions equal results. Okay. And results equal destiny. Okay. So let's use a simple example. If I drive my car after this group call to McDonald's and I order what do they sell at McDonald's? Is that a Big Mac they have at McDonald's? I haven't gone through fast food in years. So if I get a Big Mac and I eat the Big Mac, okay, that's a decision I made. The decision to eat the Big Mac is going to cause a certain set of results in my body, right? I'm going to consume those calories. I might feel sluggish. It might give me a headache. For me, I would probably pass out and almost die because I haven't eaten bread in 7 years. But so it's going to create a certain biochemical set of results in my body, right? One decision is going to create one result. If that's the only Big Mac I eat, it's not really going to make that much of an impact in my life. Now, if I go eat a Big Mac every single day for the next year, that's going to create a trajectory, right? That stacking series of decisions is going to create a stacking series of results. It's going to create momentum, right? It's going to train my brain and my body to desire certain things. It's going to cause a stacking series of results on my weight, my cholesterol, all sorts of stuff. If I ate a Big Mac every day for 10 years, well, now I might be pre-diabetic. Maybe I get heart disease, right? Maybe who knows? Okay. So it's a simple little example, not really tough to wrap your mind around this, but it illustrates the point, right? Decisions equal results, stacking decisions equal stacking results equal destiny. What's trickier though, it's easy to identify something like that. There are subtle decisions that we all are making that we don't even know that we are making in our daily lives that are creating a series of stacking results that impact our mental health, our relationships, and so on. So I want to walk through a couple of those in just a second. But first, I want to ask you guys a question. Okay. Feel free if you'd like to put it in the chat. I would love to see a little participation, but if not, just kind of reflect for yourself. I want you to think about what is one decision you've made in your life that really changed the trajectory of your life. Like if you would have made a different decision, you would have been in a very different life. Better or worse, I don't know, right? It could have been a decision on whether to go to college or not, who to marry, where to live, right? What career path to go down, okay? Okay, see in the chat, become self-employed, getting fit and healthy. Yes, Joan, that's awesome. I remember your big decision on that. Divorce your ex-husband, moving in with your dad. Okay, perfect. Easy examples, right? And those are big ones. The one that I always come back to in my mind was quitting nicotine is one of the big ones for me. And then another one was I left college early to go move across the country to do a job. Those were a couple big ones for me. So those are simple ones. Now, here's another question for you that's going to be a little tougher for you to answer. What is a small decision that you have been making on a repetitive daily basis that is impacting the trajectory of your life, either positive or negative? All right? What is a small decision that you're making on a daily basis that is impacting the trajectory of your life? I'll share with you a couple examples from my own. One of them has been, I'll just go back to the diet thing, right? So I cut out bread and I cut out sugar and I cut out dairy 7 years ago. I don't even think about it anymore. It's just a small, simple stacking thing. However, it's changed my energy levels. It's changed my weight. It's changed the destiny I'm going to have with my health, right? It's changed a lot of different things. Another simple example is my daily commitment to doing a mental conditioning exercise, right? I do that every day without fail, 7 days a week. That has changed the trajectory of where I'm headed, right, in my life. So those are some simple little examples. So I just want you to kind of think about this. Brittany says, holding on to the last 3 disempowering beliefs, snoozing my alarm in the morning, Ali. That's great. Okay. Gratitude journal. Great. perfect little examples. Okay. So I hope you guys can kind of see that. And maybe you've even had a period of time where you were making certain decisions, you were getting good results, you were feeling good momentum, and then you stopped making that decision and you started making a different decision, and then you started tanking a little bit. Anybody had that experience? I know I have myself. Okay. So that right there is the power of decision making. So the thing is, when we're in the middle of our daily life, we take it for granted. Like, we don't see it. You know what I mean? Like, we're just going like moment by moment by moment, making little tiny decisions. And the example I like to use is, it's kind of like when you're driving your car and you zone out and then you get to the destination and you're like, what the hell? I don't even remember getting here. Well, of course you were driving, you were making decisions about where to turn and when to stop and when to go, but you were unconsciously making decisions. You were not aware. So this is why the three master phases of changing your mental health are: number one, pattern identification. You must become consciously aware of what is bringing you down if you want to change it, right? You have to wake yourself up and go, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that what I was doing was making me feel like this, or what I was thinking was causing me to respond to my partner this way. Okay. So here's what I've got a list of the common decisions that we are unaware of. I'd like you guys to capture this, because anyway, just capture it. You'll see why. Okay. So these are the common decisions that we all need to take a little bit better control of. Number one, what we choose to focus on. Okay. This is a super, super simple, but probably one of the most powerful decisions in our entire life. I'll use a general example from dozens of stories. I work with a lot of people who've survived traumatic experiences. Okay. And one of the key things that creates their recovery is they finally have to decide that they're not going to choose to relive and refocus on and regurgitate the old trauma 1,000 times anymore. They are now deciding, yeah, well, that happened, but I'm going to put the majority of my focus on the future. That is a conscious decision of where to focus, right? That can be very, very powerful. A simpler example would be, say, in a romantic relationship, right? So you could say one common habit that happens in romantic relationships is people start to habitually focus on what they dislike about their partner instead of what they do like. So you can make a conscious decision of, yeah, you know what? My partner does these 3 things that like I don't really like, but I'm just not going to focus on that. I am going to focus on these 10 things that I cherish about my partner. Okay, so that can be a very powerful thing. I could give you guys dozens of examples, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to give you a few. Okay. The second key decision that we can all make is what we tell ourselves. Okay. We can decide what we tell ourselves. And by the way, let me press pause for a second and explain this, because I think this is really important. Decision. We need to define decision. Okay. Because a lot of people go, oh yeah, decision. No, there's a very important way I'm defining decision. I'm saying decision in the Latin root. The Latin root is de cadere, okay? And what this means is to cut off from. That's how you want to write it in your notes. To cut off from. Like, think of it as cut off from any other possibility. So like, I'll use Ollie's example of snoozing, right? So Ollie, when you snooze, what's happening is, like, if we imagine a hypothetical timeline of Ollie's life, right? She's going along on this timeline, and all of a sudden there's a fork in the road. Am I going to snooze or am I going to get up? Well, when she chooses to snooze, she is cutting off the possibility of getting up. Does that make sense to you guys? I know it's so simple, but that's what a real decision is. It's when you take action and you decide, and that you've cut that off, and now she's headed in this direction. Right? If I go eat the Big Mac, I cut off the effects of eating a salad, right? If I, like Cheryl, your example you wrote in the chat of the divorce, right? Okay, great. If I choose the divorce, I'm cutting off the possibility of what's going to happen if I stay. Like, am I going to continue to feel anger and sadness and all of that? Nope, cutting that off, divorce, right? And so you lead yourself in a totally different direction. The reason I'm trying to really explain this for you guys is that what we do in our daily life is we think that we're making decisions, and we are not. What we're doing to ourselves is we are stating preferences. How many of you guys have ever done this? You wake up in the morning, you go, yeah, you know what? I really should work out today. I'll do that in the afternoon, right? And then it comes around to be like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you go, yeah, I don't know if I really feel like working out anymore. I guess I'll just watch TV today. Maybe I'll work out tomorrow, right? Well, what's happening is you're reaching that fork in the road, and you think the way you rationalize it to yourself is like, yeah, no, I'm going to work out, just not right now, right? But the problem is you've now cut off that decision to work out. You're now headed in this direction. You're right. And maybe you want to write this, right? Every decision is a cause set in motion. Okay. To say that in more simpler English, every decision creates momentum, right? If I decide, no, I'm not going to work out, I'm going to delay it. Now I'm creating a higher propensity for myself to delay working out the following day. You guys follow me on that, right? As opposed to if I just get my ass moving and I go do the workout, even if I hate it now, and you guys have all experienced this, right? Then the next day I'm going to be more likely to work out. You follow me? So you have to muster willpower in the very first part to get the decision going. And then it's a lot easier to keep an object in motion. But the reason I'm trying to explain this in such granular terms is people rationalize to themselves like, oh yeah, no, I know I need to work out. I'm like, okay, well, why aren't you? Well, I don't know. So, okay, well, your life is not going to change until you actually work out, if that's what you really want, right? If what you want is health and fitness, you don't get health and fitness by preferring that you work out. You don't get health and fitness by wishing to work out. You don't get health and fitness by saying to yourself, you know what, I will work out at 3 o'clock so long as I feel like it. That doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And I wish I wish every person on the planet could have perfect mental health, and that depression and anxiety just didn't exist. Like, that would be great, except I'd be out of a job. But that's just not how it works. If you want to live a life without depression and anxiety, you can do that. Just like if you want to have a 6-pack of abs, you can do that. But there are certain decisions that have to be made to get the 6-pack. Does that make sense? You have to cut off from things. You have to say, no, I'm not going to eat this, and I am going to do this, right? And I'm going to do it over a stacking period of time. If you want to have a depression-free lifestyle, it's the same thing. You have to make decisions. You have to decide, no, you know what? Me continuing to focus on my past trauma, that doesn't work for me anymore. I'm cutting that off. I'm moving in this direction. Okay. Now you can still eat a Big Mac like once in a while and still be pretty fit, right? But it's about the stacking decisions. You follow me? It's not to say that you can never, ever, ever, ever have a negative thought pop up in your head ever again. But it is about saying, okay, you know what? I'm noticing my brain is going negative right now. I'm aware of it. I'm going to cut that off. I'm deciding to move in this direction. You guys follow me on that, right? You have to consciously direct the overall direction of decisions that you're making. Okay. So that's the second type of decision, okay, is what we tell ourselves. So you guys have seen some of this. This isn't like module 4, module 5. This is how certain words create certain impact on us. If I keep calling myself a failure, gosh, I'm such a failure, I'm such a failure, I'm such a failure. Okay, that decision of what I tell myself is going to create an effect. It's going to create a result in my body. It's going to make me feel like garbage. It's going to make me behave a certain way. If I tell myself that for 10 years, that's going to take me in a direction of a destiny. Okay. So that's an important decision, what we tell ourselves. Everybody still with me so far? I'm not moving too fast or anything. Okay. Number 3 type of decision, what we choose to believe. Okay, so this is distinguished from what we tell ourselves. So you can make a decision of, gosh, you know what? That word is not working for me. And I'm not going to say that word anymore. You guys know the common example I use is can't. I highly recommend getting rid of the word can't and replacing that for can and I will, right? Because the word can't just never really helps us. It just doesn't help us ever. Okay, what we choose to believe. An example of this would be, I'll use an example from my personal life. My wife and I, several years ago, this was before we were engaged, we had separated when we were just dating. And we got back together And I realized that I was always going to have some doubts, right? It's healthy you're going to have doubts in a relationship from time to time. That's just how it goes. But I realized I was going to decide to believe, like, no, this is it. Like, we're going to make this work. That was a conscious, deliberate choice, because I knew my mind would try to lie to me from time to time when we'd have fights or arguments, but I made a conscious decision of, no, we're going to make this work. That was a choice of what I believed. Okay. Number 4, we decide what actions we take. I just gave you about half a dozen examples, right? What you choose to eat, whether you choose to exercise or not, okay? What actions you take to run your own business, all those types of things. Simple stuff, okay? Number 5, this is a very important one, very, very important. Probably one of the most important decisions you can make. What you choose to value, okay? What you choose to value. A simple example of this would be if I'm a 45-year-old businessman who decides that he values success at the top of his list, right? And I value success number 1 and family number 2. Am I going to make very different decisions and focus on very different things and do different things with my time than if I chose to value family number 1 and success number 2? Does that make sense to you? Right? So we all make decisions of what we value. Some other common examples would be, do I value comfort or do I value growth? When I made the decision to leave college and go to DC, that was a decision of like, no, if I stay with full-time school, I'm just doing the safe thing. I want to live a life of adventure and growth. I want to take chances. And so that was me choosing what I valued. So I went across the country. Okay, what you value determines the trajectory of your life. Another example I'll give you would be approval versus growth, right? If you choose to continuously value people's approval, that's going to take your focus on that and go, gosh, what does that person think about me? And why did my customer get upset about this with me? And right, it's going to take you in that direction. But you can cut that off and say, no, I'm not valuing people's approval over my own fulfillment anymore. I'm cutting that off. Okay. Another one is we can choose what we expect. We can choose what our rules are, our shoulds. All right, so this is like module 9, especially the values process. All right, so if I continue to put in how many of you guys have ever done this where you have continued to expect something of somebody for years, right? And you continuously get mad and upset that they are not doing that thing that you want them to do. And then all of a sudden you're like, ding, 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 wait a minute. No matter how much I expect them to do this, they're just not going to do it. Right? So why don't I cut off this misery I keep putting myself in, expecting reality to be different than how I want it to be? Right? So we can choose to let that go and say, no, I'm not going to expect that anymore. I refuse. I'm not going to do that. Okay. And by the way, a lot of you guys are probably spinning in your head like, yeah, Ty, this all sounds great. How do I make these decisions? I'm going to give you some tips in a minute. Okay. Last type of decision that's really important, we all need to make more consciously, is how we choose to get our needs met. Okay, so if you guys remember the 6 needs: certainty, variety, significance, connection, love, growth, contribution. Okay, so for example, if I choose to get my need for connection and love met by being afraid that I'm going to get rejected if I go out and date. So I'm going to stay at home and I'm just going to scroll on social media and I'm going to like make comments on other people's stuff, but I'm not going to put myself out there in a dating context. Okay. This is a common thing for some of my clients. Versus, no, screw that. I'm not going to stay at home. I'm going to go out. I'm going to meet people. I'm going to connect with people. I'm going to go on a speed dating thing, whatever it is, right? That's a choice of how we get our needs met. And you can see how those different choices are going to create different levels of quality of life. Okay. All right. So I ask you again, what is a small decision now that you know what the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 types of decisions are, right? That can be impacting your life. What is one of those small decisions that you might have been making unconsciously that has been taking you in a particular direction? Have you been choosing to focus on something that continuously disempowers you no matter what? Have you been choosing to tell yourself something over and over again that never helps you? Have you been continuing to believe something that you know is really not true and doesn't serve you? Right? Have you been continuing to engage in a certain action that is completely contradictory to the results that you really want in your life? Have you continued to chase after a value that no longer serves you? Have you kept a rule on yourself or other people that is not helping you? Or are you continuing to pursue a vehicle for getting your needs met that is not helping you much? Okay. So I see some people putting things in the chat. Now, by the way, this is not about making you right or wrong. I want to make sure that that's clear. All of you guys are like different people, different walks of life, different parts of the globe. In fact, I think we have like at least 3 countries represented on this call today. So 4 countries. So it's about what you want, right? Remember that. This is not about what Ty thinks. This is not about what, anybody thinks or wants for you. It's just about you asking yourself the pivotal question of, does this serve me? Does this form of focusing serve me? Does what I'm telling myself serve me? You guys follow me on that? That's how I want you to always be thinking about the litmus test, because you're the one in charge, okay? All right, next. Some of you guys are not going to like this, but I gotta be real and honest with you. Here's what I want you to capture in your notes. If you don't currently have what you want in your life, it's because you need to make a new decision. If you don't currently have what you want in your life, it's because you need to make a new decision. Period. And now, I even wrote this. Sometimes I write things and then I'm like, damn, that even hits me right in the gut. Because there are things in my life that I don't have that I want. And I'm like, man, I really need to make some new decisions. Right? An example is I want to grow this business. I want to get a lot more people in our community and all those things. But it doesn't really help if I sit around going, man, I really wish more people were in our programs. I have to make new decisions about how I spend my time and what I focus on and what strategies I use to bring more people into our programs, right? I have to make a decision of how I interact with the environment to get what I would desire. Same thing for you guys. Now, it's easy for our mind to go, no, Ty, it's not that I need to make a new decision because you don't understand. My partner is doing XYZ, or my boss is doing XYZ, or this other circumstance in my life is not how I want it to be. Yes, I agree. There are circumstances in your life that are not ideal. However, what's in your control is to decide how you react to it and how you respond to it, right? We live in a world of cause and effect. And really zero in on me real quick for a second. Please hear me very clearly, because this is something, again, it's easy to gloss over. You guys know the word karma, right? It's usually just thought of as like, well, yeah, what goes around comes around. That's kind of the colloquial definition of karma. The actual meaning of the word karma, like taking it all the way back to like its roots, really has to do with cause and effect, like in the most granular specific terms, just in the way I was talking about before, right? If I eat the Big Mac, there's an effect, cause and effect. Right? If I go to my wife and I say, hey, honey, you look so pretty today, that's a cause and effect. That's going to create an emotional response from her, right? And vice versa. If I critique her, cause and effect. If I blame myself for something, cause and effect. So all of these little things, what we focus on, what we tell ourselves, what we choose to believe, you guys can see the cycle, right? Like if I choose to focus on this, I'm going to feel like this, and then I'm going to make this decision, and it's going to make my life worse. Cause and effect, karma. So your karma is more about figuring out what are the inputs that I am putting into my life right now that are getting me the outputs that I am currently getting in my life right now. Your life as it is right now, the amount of money that you make, the quality of relationships that you have, the quality of health and energy that you have, the mental health that you have, think of that as the outputs. Right? Those are the results that you're getting in your life right now. If you want different outputs, you need different inputs. It's as simple as that. Does that make sense to you guys? Right? And what a lot of people do, myself included, is we just spend a lot of time getting pissed off about the outputs. You guys know what I'm talking about there, right? We just go, man, why in the hell am I still not at the weight that I want to be at? Why in the hell do I keep arguing with this person? Why don't I have as much money as I want? right? And we can blame ourselves, other people, other circumstances, but write this down. Blame never empowers you, ever. Blame will never, ever empower you, and it will never change your life. If you want different outputs, you must put in different inputs. Okay? It's as simple as that. If you want a better relationship, if you want your partner to be more loving, you probably need to be more loving to them. Right? If you want different results with your body, there's different inputs you need to put into the area of your health and your energy, your diet, your exercise, things of that nature. If there's a different output you want with your mental health, how you feel, you need different inputs of how you focus, what you tell yourself, things of that nature. Okay, inputs and outputs. The more you think in terms of just inputs and outputs, the easier life gets. Because now you can realize, oh my gosh, I am always in control of what I put in. That's the really good news, guys. You're always in control of what you put in, so therefore you can get the outputs that you want over a stacking series period of time. That's what's really cool. But when we spend too much time just getting irritated about the outputs, we don't really make our life better. We just sit around hoping that the outputs change, and that never works. So I believe that your real life begins as soon as you stop blaming anything else and you go, all right, this is just how, this is the world I live in. It's a world of cause and effect. Whether it's fair or not, this is it. So if I want to make more money, I got to put in different inputs. If I want to have a more loving relationship, I need to give first to receive more in my relationship. Right? And that's why we have all these programs, is to teach you guys what inputs you need. But so many people, the reason I'm taking so much time with you guys on this is because we spend so much time just avoiding making decisions. That's why I'm talking to you about this today. We spend so much time thinking that the reason we don't have what we don't have is some other externalized reason, as opposed to going, wait a minute, what new choice can I make to get what I want? Because that's the only new form of thinking that's going to break the pattern. Okay. All right, almost done. Stick with me here, almost done. You are only one decision away from an entirely different life. You are only one decision away from an entirely different life. That may sound hyperbolic, but I really believe it's true. It may need to be a big decision, right? Like, for instance, that hypothetical I gave, right? That guy who values success first and family second, if he just simply decides, you know what? No, I'm valuing family first and success second. That's a totally different life, completely different life. If somebody survived a traumatic experience in the past, but they've continued to focus on it over and over and over and over again, if they just make the single decision of, you know what, I'm not going to give that any more energy, I'm not going to give that any more power over me, I'm not going to continue to focus on that. That one tiny decision creates a totally different life, right? And it can be simple, small stuff too. Like, no, all right, I'm off cigarettes now. That's it, I'm done. That's going to create a totally different life. It can be a small decision of like, you know what, I'm going to, I'm going to take my daughter out for a daddy-daughter date once a week. I'm going to do that now, right? That's a tiny decision, but that's going to create a totally different life, totally different relationship for that dad and daughter. So it's not always some big, giant, cataclysmic, like lightning bolt through the sky decision. That's what's really cool. It's just the small stacking decisions. And that's what I want to kind of get you guys associated to is, what is a simple, small decision I could make, a real decision where I cut off the other possibility and I really commit to this, that's going to take me in a totally different trajectory. That's what I want you to get associated to, because it's really powerful to think that way. Okay. All right. Last little segment here, tips for making better decisions. So here are some tips for implementation. I'll take a drink here. 1 second. Okay. Let me check the chat here real quick. See if you guys have questions or if you guys think I'm nuts or what's going on. Somebody said, can you repeat that one more time? I totally forgot what I said 6 minutes ago. Sorry, Cheryl. I don't know. You're all good. Okay.
It was just the one about if I don't have what I want in my life, I just need to make a new decision. I know, is it Joa had a question earlier?
Joan did.
No.
Yoe.
Yeah, sorry
Yes.
for pronouncing your name.
I can. My question can go after the tips for making better decisions. It's kind of related to that.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, let me go through this and then we'll talk about it. All right. Tips for making better decisions. Number one, pay attention to cause and effect. Pay attention to cause and effect. It sounds so simple, but we don't do this. We just notice the effect. Most people just notice the undesirable effects and they focus on that. Gosh, I'm still broke. Why am I still broke? Right? And they just focus on that. And instead of going, okay, wait a minute. The amount of money I'm making is because of the inputs I'm putting into my career. Maybe I need to be in a different career path. Maybe I need to position myself better for a promotion. Maybe I need some career coaching. Maybe I need to learn some new skills. Maybe I am working in a dying segment of the marketplace that is no longer in demand. Like if I'm trying to get rich while I'm working at a newspaper, that's probably not going to work so great since they're dying by 25% annually right now, right? So you want to start looking at cause and effect. Relationships. Let's talk about this, for example. A lot of times when I do my relationship coaching, people will always tell me like, oh gosh, my husband is so argumentative. I go, okay, well, what's an example of something he says you don't like? And they'll give me the example and say, gotcha. What did you say to him right before he said that? Right? Like we're so predispositioned to just focus on what we dislike. We forget to pay attention to, wait a minute, what happened right before that caused that undesirable effect? Right? So that's what you want to start to get really curious about. All right. Number two, model what works. Okay, so with number one, sometimes you can just figure out like, oh man, this undesirable thing is always created by me thinking this particular way. Every single time I screw things up with my partner, it's because right before that, I was telling myself this phrase, cause and effect. Right. So sometimes you can identify the thing that's causing the undesirable effect, and that's really helpful because you can figure out what to stop doing. That's a form of decision, is just, no, I'm not going to tell myself that anymore. Okay. But what is best is to try to replace it with something else usually. Right. And that's where you want to just model what works. Very often, if you're not getting the result that you want in an area of your life, you have gotten that result at one point in your life. Very often, not always, but very often. The simplest example I could give is romantic relationships. Almost always romantic relationships are really, really fulfilling within like the first 6 to 12 months. They're really exciting. Both people feel really energized. They feel passionate. They feel all of those things, right? And then without them even noticing, they start changing their inputs. And in year 2 and year 3 and year 4, they start adjusting their expectations. They start changing what they focus on. They start changing what they believe. They start changing what they value. And then they go, oh my gosh, I don't know why my relationship has gone down the tubes. Well, literally just do what you did in the beginning. Treat your husband like your boyfriend. Treat your wife like your girlfriend. And very often, that's literally all you got to do. It's amazing. I sometimes give that piece of coaching to people and they're like, I'll say, okay, well, if they were your girlfriend, what would you do? And they're like, oh, well, that would be a totally different story. It's like, okay, so you'd treat a girlfriend totally different than your wife. Like, you know what I mean? Like we think like this. It's so weird. So just model what you've done in the past. Or weight loss is another good one, right? People who lost weight and then gained weight. Okay, cool. What did you do that made you lose weight before? All you got to do is do those same decisions and you'll probably be just fine. Okay. Business is another example. Yoe, I know you're self-employed. We both are in the coaching industry, right? Ali, you as well. It's like, okay, if I had a really successful client, it's because there was a reason. There was a path. It was a type of client I gave a certain type of instruction. I followed up a certain way that got them a certain result. If I had an undesirable situation with a client, there's a cause and effect. There's a reason. So we gotta look at that. Okay. Model what works is number 2. Number 3, develop a specific if-then plan. You guys might remember this. I forget what module it is in, so please don't ask me because I don't know. but it's in there, but I'll explain it to you again real quick. When you develop a specific plan for your brain, it makes it easy to follow through on the new decision as opposed to going off of the old script. So here's the template. When X occurs, don't do Y, do Z instead. Okay, I'll say that again. When X occurs, don't do Y, do Z instead. So now, hopefully this conversation has sparked you figuring out some decisions you need to make, maybe even tiny ones. The best way to implement that is to create an if-then plan. So you identify what the trigger is. Like, let's say I'm no longer going to eat ice cream anymore. Okay, so it's like, okay, when I watch a movie at night, don't eat ice cream. Instead, eat 3 strawberries. Right? Now I'm identifying what the trigger is. I'm identifying what the behavior is I'm not going to do anymore. And I'm identifying what I'm going to replace it with. Okay, studies have found that if you map it out at this level of specificity, it makes it a lot easier for your brain to follow through. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay, or I'll give you one other example. Like, let's take something a little more mental. When I make a mistake, don't call myself a failure. Instead, ask myself, what can I learn from this? Simple example. I'll give you one final one. When someone disapproves of me, don't take their opinion seriously. Yeah, that's a good one. Don't take their opinion seriously. Instead, reassert my own self-worth. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, simple stuff. All right, number 4, train yourself to take action immediately. This is, again, one of those things that's very understated. You guys ever had this situation where you're like, man, I really need to do that thing right after I watch another episode of this TV show, right? And we just press pause on it. What you have to do, and I will admit, I have not totally mastered this myself, but I've gotten a lot better over the years. When you know you need to take action on it, take action. You want to train yourself to just, you want to make sure that your favorite word is now. Like, oh, I want to do this? Great, now. What am I going to do right now? Because you're never going to have that same level of association to it, right? Do something to make sure that you take some type of action towards it. Okay, Jackie, number 4 is take action immediately. Okay, and then number 5, reinforce and celebrate yourself for your new decisions. Reinforce and celebrate yourself for your new decisions. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see you guys making, is you beat yourself up for the most minuscule, tiny little mistakes, and then you totally discount the major progress and successes that you're making. Like, to the point where I even have to be like, hey, do you even know what you just said? Like, do you realize how much of a difference that is from 2 months ago? And you guys will be like, oh no, I didn't really notice that. I was too busy focusing on everything I still hate. It's like, you got to reinforce yourself. You got to celebrate. There was a phrase that someone said to me once. I went to a seminar years ago where we did like a fire walk on coals. I don't know if you guys have ever done this. It was a really fun experience, but it was just kind of like training yourself that like you can do more than your brain will tell you can do, right? So I walked across this like 20-foot bed of coals. And then at the end, they had this really cool ritual where they have you celebrate. Like, they're like, yeah, like jump up and down and like scream and holler and do all that. And I'm not like that kind of guy, but they had me celebrate. Like, I got to the end of the coals and I got done and I looked at the staff member and I'm like, had this look on my face of like, what the hell do I do now? And they were like, celebrate. And, and she said to me this phrase that stuck with me. She said, you don't need a reason to celebrate. Like, most people go through their whole life not needing a reason to be pissed off. It's like, oh, why are you in a bad mood? Woke up. I understand. Right? But like, you don't need to have a reason to celebrate. So like, you definitely want to celebrate when you make little changes. And I've done this and it's worked for me really well. So like, when I get myself doing a new habit, thank you, Ollie, for the summary in the chat. I really appreciate that. What I do in my daily life is when I'm enacting a new habit, as soon as I do the habit, it'll sound cheesy to you guys, but it really works for me. I'll take a minute And I'll just like put my hand on my heart and I'll be like, yes, like good job, man. Like awesome, proud of you. Just like I would do like if I were talking to somebody else. Right. And what that does is it creates a feedback loop. It does. And it really works. Right. So positive reinforcement works really well. Okay. So I've been yapping for a long time. I hope that was valuable for you guys. But I just really wanted to share that.